Hey everyone. Tonight I'm going to take a few minutes and make a follow-up video from last night's Patreon class. Last night we covered the Fibonacci speed fan. This indicator can be located here in your indicators tools. So let's go ahead and lay one on the chart, and we'll do a couple examples of this for the people that missed it and the people that are a little confused and need a little refresher. So it's a pretty simple tool here. It's Fib Speed Resistance Fan. So you click on that, and generally you pick a low point and a high point. So this can be done in either direction. You can either pick a low point and a high point, or a high point and a low point. Now, these points have to be pivot points in the market. So you need some type of pivot. So here's a pivot of trend direction. Here's a pivot of trend direction. Okay, so what this is laying is it's laying a fan out of your Fibonacci levels of a fan. Some chart programs have this grid square block here, and some don't. So what I prefer to do is I don't personally use the grid. I will remove that from there, and it cleans up your chart. So once you have laid this on here, you need to make sure that you got it correct. Now, I'm going to show you something that I noticed, because this always doesn't work from an exact low point to an exact high point. So right here, it looks like the price dipped down lower, and the trend itself actually started from this point. So when you're in a situation like this, I would try both of these, because when I line this up here to this one, I get a lot better result from this low point to this high point. Now, this could be for several reasons. For example, this is Bitfinex, and the price coming down so hard might have dipped a little bit lower on Bitfinex than it did on any other exchange. So by the time that got worked out over here or over here by the arbitration bots, and everything synced back up between the exchanges, you could be getting a different result. So if you ever run into a situation like this, technically you're supposed to go from the bottom of a low to a high point, but you can always make adjustments here. Feel free to make adjustments if that's what's working, because clearly you can see at this point to this point that it's clearly finding support and resistance. Support, resistance, resistance, support. So that looks a lot better to me than this one here. This one here looks off. You see how it's kind of like missing it a little bit? I definitely think this would be the better option here. So don't be afraid to play around with these until you find the correlation with it. That one clearly is the correlation here. These can be used to identify support and resistance zones on your chart. So they're pretty simple. Let me do that one more time. Like I said, identify your low and your pivot point, identify your high and your pivot point, and just click it, drag it, click it. Just like you would a normal Fibonacci, but you're going on an angle this time. So, pretty simple stuff here. I'll go through another example. How's that sound? Let's find another one on here. I think I had some marked from last night, so let's go back. Give me a second. This is the one we used last night. Now, we got to find the bottom of it. So it looks to be about here. We'll run this up. You can do this multiple ways here. For example, if it came up to this point and you want to pull off of that, then you can work off of this now. Because obviously if we're at this price point in the market, then we don't have any of this history. We'll pretend that's not there for now. So you would pull from this low to this high, and you can use it, and you can clearly see that it found support here. If you were at this point in the market, now you know an option of several places you could potentially have buy zones and resistance zones. As the market continues on, then you can always bring it up to here and then up to your high point as you have more data come through on your market. So don't be afraid to keep moving this around throughout the day or every several days if you need to use it in a different manner of price action, because clearly now that we went from this low to this high, we can clearly see these support points on the way down. Now, look how it came down and it touched the support and it bounced. And it failed, came down, it found support again here. It failed, it turned into resistance. So all these are tradable. That's a good example of it. And let's find another one. All right, let's try this low point. Now, there's going to be several options. That's the thing. These are all low points in the chart. So really, you're going to have to find which one correlates the best for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be the exact low, because like I said on the first time, it could be where the trend started. But you needed a low point and a high point to use this tool. So let's pull off of this one and see how we're looking here. So we got a low, we got a high, a high. So which one looks better? Let's try this high first. So clearly I see a correlation here, here. There's resistance here, support through here. So this looks like the one that looks pretty good to me. Let's try the other high. So now that we're further down in the market, looks like a gap here. Let me switch back and keep an eye on that zone. No, that gapped out too much. So we can pull it over to here, high point now at this point in the market. So like I said, don't be afraid to move these around if you have to. It's a very simple tool to use. Low to high, high to low. And that's pretty much it. And it really correlates this, because if you look at these, a lot of trends don't go in, straight up and down or straight left and right. They move in diagonal. So this will give you a clear definition of zones, because you can clearly see here and here and the resistance and the supports. You can clearly identify all these with this. And now to go back and show you why I removed the box. Why did you remove the box, Todd? Well, I'm going to put it back on there, but I'm going to put it back on there in a different way, because some chart some chart programs don't actually have the box on there, and some do. So I know the old like MetaTrader and those didn't have the box, but TradingView does. So what I do is I go in here and I will run a Fibonacci retracement with this to correlate to make my box. See? So now I have my box with my extended lines, my grids, and now I have different areas identified. Let's go over here and look at this trend and see what we can tell from that at the beginning with the two of them on there. Fibonacci speed fan. I was pulling from this point to this point. It's clearly what we're working with here. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to pull a fib off of this. And clearly now we can see that we got the information we need. We have our resistance points on our angles, and you see how it comes down here? And the price actually touched here. You can see the wicks, how they walked up, but it actually supported the price at the 50 fib. So take a second and look at that. You see how the price dipped, but the actual close of the candle closed at the fib? So this is a good way to identify zones that are trading, because when you have certain points in the market that will cross 2 points, you can have a higher probability of finding resistance at this point. Look how these two lines cross. So there's more resistance at this point from these two places. So what happens in price generally? Price generally happens to follow the path of least resistance. So if you have 2 points or 3 points or 4 points or 5 points of interest with several different indicators that you're using piled on top of each other, then you can possibly identify zones that the price action is going to reverse, or you can determine if it's going to continue and things to that nature. So that is what this tool is used for. That is how to do it. It's really simple. Anybody can pick it up and start using it with a little bit of practice. So I'm going to conclude this video and go out and try it for yourself. See your results and see how you do with it.